to become an au pair. You may not know what an au pair is, or you may be in the midst of your process to become one, or maybe you're already an au pair and you just want to disagree with me or agree with me on some points. But I was an au pair last year. I went to Paris, France, and it was frankly a fantastic decision, but I really had no idea what I was getting into, and there weren't a lot of resources out there for me to rely on, not necessarily applied to my specific situation. I mean, this may not apply to your situation, but if you are looking to au pair not through an agency, or if you are from the US, this is definitely going to apply to you. And if not, there are probably some helpful tips that you can find anyway. So my first recommendation is to start your search really early. I probably started in late May when I decided to leave my school, take a gap year, and go abroad. I decided to be an au pair because I wanted to transfer universities, and it just seemed like the best way for me to spend my year while I applied to other schools, as opposed to staying at the school I was at and paying a lot of money for something I didn't necessarily want to do. So I started in late May when I made that decision to transfer, and my aim was to leave for September so that I could work all summer and then have enough money to go. And that was an okay timeline. I could have started a little earlier. I was very thorough with my search, and I didn't know how long it was going to take to get a visa. And that visa situation, if you are from the US, is why I recommend starting so early. And it also just gives you more flexibility and helps you decide. You might not want to start too early, because then it's going to be difficult to find families who are looking for an au pair when you are interested in going, if you're starting months and months in advance. But I would definitely give it 4 months at least, if not 5, just for visa processing and your own personal comfort and buying flights and all that jazz. So my next recommendation is to not go through an agency. Obviously, this is a really big step and a really big change, and you probably want a lot of advice and a lot of help along the way. But personally, for me, I wanted control over where I was going, what I was doing, and the family I worked with. And I wanted to make sure that I talked to that family beforehand, and I knew that was the right family for me, and the right situation, and the right number of children and ages and all that. And so I really didn't want to go through an agency because I wanted my own flexibility, and that was more important to me than the comfort of knowing someone else is figuring this out for me. And once I did get to Paris, I knew some other au pairs who did go through agencies, and their experiences were very different. I know a lot of people from my French classes or from various Facebook groups who switched families because they had issues with their families, and that was overwhelmingly people who had gone through agencies. Even my roommate now in college, or my old roommate, she was an au pair for 2 months, and she went through an agency, and she really struggled, and she ended up going home after 2 months and did not stay. And that's a similar experience for a lot of people I know who went through agencies. So I would really recommend going through by yourself and choosing that. I used a website called aupairworld.com. How I describe it to people is basically like Tinder for au pairs. And you can put in all your specifications, how old you want your children to be, what your abilities are. So if you have a driver's license, or if you want a non-smoking family, or if you smoke and all that. And so their families, I believe they have to pay to be on the website. So they're not just randos who are a little sketchy, but you don't have to pay. And so you can go through all the families, kind of message them for a while, and then if you like them, you can eventually Skype with them or FaceTime or what have you. And I'm not sponsored by Au Pair World, but I really liked them. I spent probably a month and a half going through families on their website because I wanted to be really thorough, make sure I was getting the best family for me, and I loved their website so much, and I cannot recommend it enough. I know a lot of other au pairs who went through Au Pair World while I was in Paris, and they also loved it. If you are going to maybe a less popular country for au pairs, it might be more difficult for you to use that, because it's really, like in France, au pairs are very popular. I know in Italy and in Spain, again, they're very popular, but for other countries, there are definitely more limited choices. I guess this goes along with my advice to not go through an agency, but know what you want. There are a lot of choices, there are a lot of options, there are a lot of families, and you have to know what you want and what you're looking for. If you have a vague idea, it's going to be really broad and hard to narrow down your families, and you might get a family that you're less happy with because you just weren't entirely sure what you were looking for. And so I had a very clear idea of the age of children that I wanted, the amount of housework I was comfortable doing, how far or close I wanted to be from the city, the benefits that they give you. So some families provide you with transportation cards, or they pay for your costs for your flights, or they help you with your visa, or not your visa, but the paperwork you have to do once you get into the country, pay for your healthcare, your phone plan, all that jazz. There are a lot of costs, and you need to know what you're comfortable paying for and what you need them to pay for. So I knew that I wanted to take care of a child who was a little older. I would have been happy taking care of like a young teenager, or something like that. I ended up taking care of a 6-year-old boy. I think when I went into it, I was like, I really want like a girl. I want someone who's older. I ended up with a 6-year-old boy, and I really liked him a lot. But I knew that I couldn't go any younger than that. I knew that I wasn't good with younger kids, and that was what I felt comfortable with. And I also didn't think I felt comfortable with taking care of multiple children at once, especially if they were of varying age differences. It was going to be a lot harder, so I wanted a family where I was only taking care of one kid. And now I did end up teaching English to their older children, but I was not taking care of them. So I took care of one 6-year-old boy, and I was really happy with that, and I knew that was okay for me, but I didn't want more kids than that, and I didn't want younger kids than that, and I was very firm on that. And I also knew that I needed a family who I could tell was going to support me once I was there. So I wanted someone who would pay for some of these extra things, like my transportation costs within the city, my health forms and things. They'd help me fill that out because I didn't speak any French. So that was a necessity for me, and my phone plan. It was very important that they were helpful, even if I had to pay for my phone plan eventually. I needed their help in figuring that out because I didn't speak French. I'd never figured out my own phone plan before. Yes, and I knew that I needed to live somewhat separate from the family. That was ideal for me. I didn't want to live directly in their house. Ideally, I'd have a separate apartment, or eventually I ended up basically having a basement apartment in their house. And I had my own entrance, so I could come and go as I wanted, and that was really convenient and easy for me. And I know people who lived in the house with their families more directly and had to go past their child's room every night if they were coming back late. That was really difficult for them. And so I knew that was really what I wanted. And I also really wanted to be within the city. I can't drive, and I wanted to be able to get around with ease, especially if you are going somewhere where public transportation shuts down at night. It just got a lot easier if I was in the city. So following all that, my next piece of advice is be picky with your families. If something seems off, if they are not offering you most of what you want, just don't do it, because you are going to be stuck with this family potentially for a year, and you want to be happy for that year, and you're going to be in a different country. It's going to be a stressful environment. You're going to be working and taking care of children and figuring things out. You need a family that you feel completely confident in. And maybe you go and they're not the perfect family and you have to switch, and that's not a big deal, but going into it, you want to know that you made your best attempt. And I was really happy with my family, but I was really picky, and I probably had 6 or 7 interviews with families, and I looked and talked to way more just on Au Pair World. I talked to so many families, and I considered multiple different countries, but I was really picky and I knew what I wanted, and I needed that to be fulfilled. And so my last piece of advice is apply for your visa way in advance. If you know what country you're going to, make your appointment even if you don't know what your family situation is yet, because I think in the US you had to make an appointment at least a month, potentially 2 or 3 months in advance, and the appointments filled up really quickly. You had to go to the embassy. It was super complicated, and I didn't do that in a timely fashion. And I told my family that I couldn't get an appointment, and there's also, once you do get an appointment, your visa might process for up to a month. I don't really remember because I didn't go through this process as I was supposed to. But the way it ended up for me, if I hadn't had the help of my host family who had some connections, I probably wouldn't have reached Paris until October. Which wasn't ideal for me, wasn't ideal for my family. I found the family I wanted, I didn't want to lose them. So make sure you sign up for an appointment. It's super complicated. Make sure you have all your paperwork done, because they are picky about your paperwork. If you don't have it done correctly, they will be peeved. There are a bunch of forms, and if you are watching this and you're filling out those forms and you need advice on those, please contact me. Please let me know in the comments, because they are so just not helpful in any way. And if you are going to France, the French people at the embassy can be kind of pissy. So maybe make sure you have all those done if you don't want to cry at 9 a.m. and it was a mess. I was very lucky. I forgot one of my forms, and luckily the person I handed that form to was not the same angry French guy who took my fingerprints, but was a young French guy who was like, here is the form, fill it out right now, it's all gonna be fine. And then I had the wrong postage or something, I'd filled that out wrong, and so he was like, oh, it's fine, here's an envelope, it's all gonna be okay. But don't rely on that, because they are really picky. So that is my advice for kind of the pre-stages of becoming an au pair. I wanted to find a way to tackle my experience in a manageable chunk, because I have a lot to say, even though I'm no longer in France. I really miss it, and I just feel like I have a lot of advice and a lot of feelings. I miss my family and I want to talk about it all the time, and everyone here is like, God, Maddie, shut up. Stop talking about Paris. But it was the year of my life, and it was a great time, so I'm not going to shut up. But yeah, if you have any questions about being an au pair or transferring schools or anything else like that, please let me know down below. If you like this video, please subscribe for more travel-related content, potentially. Yeah, definitely. I'm studying abroad next year. It's gonna be a blast. There's gonna be some travel-related jazz up here. So if you like that, if you like this kind of thing, if you like me, please subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful spring.